And today, we are undertaking a deep dive into the fundamental principles of massive achievement.
Massive achievement. I like that. We're extracting this from David J. Schwartz's hugely influential and, I have to say, incredibly practical work, The Magic of Thinking Big.
Our mission today is it's laser-focused,
Yeah.
and it's entirely for you, the listener. We know you want to gain knowledge quickly, thoroughly, and translate these high-level concepts of success into practical steps you can use, well, immediately.
Right, because this isn't just theory.
Not at all.
No.
We're looking at a pretty radical idea, really, that success isn't primarily determined by your intelligence or your background or even your physical gifts.
So what is it then?
It's about how simply and how profoundly you change the size of your thoughts. The size of your thoughts, it turns out, dictates the size of your achievements.
Okay, let's unpack that, because that core premise is wildly counterintuitive. And honestly, it's a little provocative. It completely challenges that conventional wisdom that says success, it belongs exclusively to the most brilliant or the most networked.
Or the luckiest.
Or the luckiest, exactly. And we start with this striking anecdote that perfectly frames the entire approach. It's centered on a salesman named Harry.
Right. So an executive is trying to motivate his entire sales group.
Yeah.
And he points to Harry, who was earning an income 5 times the average of everyone else in that room.
5 times. That's not just a marginal difference.
No, not at all. Harry was operating on a completely different financial plane. So the executive starts ticking off all the usual metrics we use to explain success.
Okay, so was Harry 5 times smarter than everyone else?
Nope. The personnel tests showed his raw intelligence was actually just average.
Okay, so maybe he was a workaholic, 60, 70 hours a week.
Reports showed he actually took more time off than most of his peers.
Better territory, better education, just better physical health.
In all the measurable empirical respects that usually correlate with professional achievement, Harry was definitively average, unremarkable even.
So the question just hung in the air. What was that one thing that defied all the statistics? The one variable that multiplied his income 5-fold.
And the executive's conclusion was simple. And frankly, revolutionary. Harry simply dared to think big. That's it. Harry believed he was worth 5 times the average salary, and so his actions, his attitude, everything followed that internal belief.
And that is the crucial pivot, isn't it? It suggests success is not some mystical gift that's just bestowed upon a genius.
Right. It's not about being born into the right family.
It's based on an acquired belief and an acquired attitude. And if you choose to think big, you start to realize something really profound about competition.
You realize that the path to what the book calls first-class avenue, the highest executive roles, the biggest deals, the most influential positions, that path is actually a remarkably short and uncrowded street.
Why is that?
Because the source material estimates there is at least 50 times as much competition for jobs on second-class street. That's the middle management, the average income, the comfortable mediocrity, than there is for the absolute top roles.
So people just self-select out.
They do. They self-select out simply because they don't dare to think big enough to even apply or to strive for those positions in the first place.
And that's our deep dive today. We're going to look beyond all those superficial differences and really analyze the mechanics of achievement. We'll unpack the power of belief, learn how to cure those subtle but paralyzing failure diseases.
Collectively known as Excusitis.
Excusitis, yes. We'll acquire practical, even physical confidence habits, learn how to manage our psychological environment, and use specific, almost automatic goal-setting techniques to unlock that essential I can do it attitude.
The attitude that's absolutely necessary to secure big success.
All right, let's start at the absolute foundation, because if this first step isn't solid, nothing else really works, and that is the power of belief. When people first encounter this idea, they often confuse belief with wishful thinking, and we need to draw that line immediately. Because let's be honest, you can sit on your couch and wish yourself into an executive suite.
And nothing will happen.
Nothing will happen. It's an empty exercise.
It is. Wishful thinking is passive. It's hoping for a positive outcome without changing any of the inputs. True belief, however, is dynamic. It's what the book calls the I'm positive I can attitude. And that's what moves mountains.
So what's the mechanism there? How does that work psychologically?
Well, what's fascinating is that belief doesn't magically change the outside world. Instead, it generates the internal power, the necessary skill development, and the sustained energy you need to perform the job at the highest level.
So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but in the best possible way.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes this crucial concept. When you genuinely believe I can do it, the specific how to do it, It just develops organically.
So belief is like a searchlight. It forces your brain to look for solutions and resources instead of just obstacles.
Precisely. And if you look at the reverse, you see this powerfully destructive force, which is disbelief. If you approach a challenge thinking, oh, I had my misgivings before I even started, or
I didn't think it would work, and I'm probably going to fail.
right, your mind just acts as a confirmation bias engine. It actively attracts reasons and supporting evidence to make sure that failure happens. You're unconsciously programming yourself for that negative outcome.
You find proof of your own inadequacy, and then you call it reality.
That's it. And nothing illustrates this mental programming in action better than the story of the young lady who decided she was going to sell mobile homes.
And by every standard measure of business logic, she was told this was impossible. Reckless, even.
Let's just look at the cold, hard facts of her situation. First, she lacked the most critical resource in capital. She had less than $3,000 in savings. The minimum required just to get started was many, many times that.
Okay, so that's a big hurdle.
A huge one. Second, the competition was fierce. This was a tough, established market she was trying to break into. And third, she had zero practical experience. None. Not in selling mobile homes, let alone managing a complex sales business.
So her advisors were being rational, they were being logical, and they were wrong.
They're operating purely on the current facts and figures.
Yeah.
But this young lady, she was operating on a belief in herself and in the future that was, well, it was absolute and unquestioned.
She didn't deny the facts.
No, she didn't deny her lack of capital or experience. She just focused exclusively on the future narrative. Her conviction was, all the evidence I can gather shows the mobile home industry is going to expand dramatically, and I know I can do a better job of merchandising trailers and serving customers than anybody else in this town.
That focus on the future and her own conviction, despite all the current obstacles, that's where it gets truly transformative, isn't it?
It is. Her sheer, unwavering belief acted like a magnet for external confidence.
How so?
Because she wasn't asking for a handout. She was selling a vision. Her conviction that the industry was poised for this exponential growth and that she was the best person to capitalize on it. And this won her the trust of two investors who provided the initial capital.
Which is amazing in itself, but that's not even the most amazing part.
Not even close. Armed with that rock-solid conviction, she achieved what everyone said was impossible. She convinced a major trailer manufacturer to advance her a limited inventory of mobile homes with no money down.
That is just extraordinary. That manufacturer was investing in her attitude, not her checking account.
The payoff was spectacular because her actions then matched her belief. She quickly went from zero to selling over $1 million worth of trailers annually. Within 2 years, she was projecting figures near $2 million.
Wow. So this example shows us the profound truth. Belief, strong belief, it triggers the mind to figure out the ways and the means.
And critically, believing you can succeed makes others, investors, customers, suppliers, it makes them place their confidence in you. You radiate competency.
That powerful idea of conviction leads us right to the internal structure of the mind, which the source material frames brilliantly using this metaphor of a thought factory. And this isn't just a clever analogy, it's like a manual for mental management.
That's right. Your mind is a factory, and it's constantly at work, churning out thousands of thoughts every single day. And every one of those thoughts is managed by one of two supervisors, Mr. Triumph and Mr. Defeat.
And they are, as the book says, intensely obedient and reactive.
They snap to attention the exact moment you give them a signal.
Okay, so let's talk about Mr. Defeat. He's the manufacturer of negative thoughts. His specialty is providing reasons why you can't possibly handle that new job, why you're weak, why you're fundamentally inadequate.
He's the expert in creating that why you will fail chain of thoughts. And he's incredibly efficient.
Yeah.
Give him the smallest signal, say, today's a lousy, rotten day and I don't feel like doing anything, and Mr. Defeat is instantly activated. He will immediately start manufacturing facts to prove your negative outlook.
Like,
well, the weather is poor, that client will probably cancel, your email is backed up, other people are definitely on edge today. In a matter of moments, he has just flooded your mind with evidence confirming the negative, convincing you to just stay home or procrastinate.
But conversely, you can give the positive signal. You can say to yourself, this is an incredible day to get things done.
And Mr. Triumph is signaled forward. He manufactures positive thoughts. He shows you that the cool weather is actually refreshing for focused work, that this is a great day to follow up with that client, and that you are perfectly qualified to achieve your goals. He builds the confidence engine.
Now here is the critical application point for you, the listener. The more work you give to either of these two foremen, the stronger and more dominant he becomes.
Right. If Mr. Defeat is constantly fed negative signals, he starts adding mental personnel. He takes up more and more space in your mind, and eventually he ensures that virtually all your spontaneous default thought is negative and self-sabotaging. It just becomes a deeply ingrained habit.
So the single wise choice is not to argue with Mr. Defeat, but to simply fire him. You don't need him telling you that you'll fail or that you aren't up to the challenge. The trick is letting that master thought, "I will succeed," dominate your thinking process.
But what does firing him look like in practice? Is it just refusing to think negative thoughts? Or is there like a daily disciplinary action you need to take?
I think it requires vigilance. Firing him means immediately challenging and replacing those automatic negative thoughts. When you catch yourself thinking, "Oh, I can't do this presentation," you have to consciously interrupt that thought.
And replace it with a positive command.
Exactly. Replace it with, "I'm prepared, I've done this before, and I will deliver it effectively." It's all about starving Mr. Defeat by denying him the raw material, that negative signal, and instead constantly signaling Mr. Triumph. That's the daily discipline that conditions your mind to operate solely in a success-producing mode.
Okay, so once we establish that positive foundation of belief, we immediately run into the biggest mental drain on achievement, which is excusitis.
Let's get into this. This failure disease that keeps millions of people stuck on second-class street. It's defined as the tendency for victims to select a good excuse, an alibi for mediocrity and failure.
And stick with it like glue.
Right. And the real danger here, connecting back to our thought factory, is the power of repetition.
Absolutely. Thoughts, whether they're positive or negative, they grow stronger when they're fertilized with constant repetition. At first, the victim knows deep down that their alibi is only a partial truth, maybe a convenient half-lie.
But the more they repeat that excuse to themselves, to their spouse, to their boss,
The more completely convinced they become that it is the true, insurmountable, and legitimate reason for their failure to advance. It literally becomes their reality.
So we're going to tackle 3 major paralyzing strains of excusitis, starting with alibi number 1, health excusitis. This is the idea that your physical condition, whether it's real or imagined, is what prevents you from achieving success or taking necessary risks.
And we have to start with a reality check here that physicians and surgeons confirm all the time. The perfect specimen of adult life is non-existent.
Right, everyone has something physically wrong.
Everybody does. Whether it's minor aches, chronic issues, or genetic predispositions. Success-thinking people, they recognize this reality, they acknowledge their limitations where they exist, and then they simply defeat the excuse by resolving to live fully despite them.
And the anecdotes in the book show these polar extremes of attitude. First, the negative example. A man in his 30s, financially successful, but just consumed by the fear of poor health.
Right. He had seen 4 different doctors, but he was still convinced he had a bad heart. He was continually looking for evidence of illness and, seeking pity from those around him.
He was giving Mr. Defeat maximum work.
Maximum. This constant high-level worry and obsession with potential illness can actually produce the symptoms he feared. This is what's medically known as EII, or emotionally induced illness.
So the mind-body connection is working against you.
It is. The psychological stress leads to chronic tension, which can increase blood pressure, trigger ulcers, and cause debilitating muscle pain or fatigue. His psychological fear was becoming a physical reality, which just validated his excuse.
So the suggested cure has to address both the physical reality and the mental habit. The advice is, what, 3-fold?
It is. First, visit the finest specialist you can find, accept that diagnosis is final, and then stop looking for new illnesses. Stop doom-scrolling health blogs searching for a new symptom.
And second, read about EII, emotionally induced illness, to understand how your own worry is physically damaging you. And then resolve to manage your emotions and deny that negative foreman the input he craves.
And the third piece of advice is captured perfectly by this lawyer with an arrested case of tuberculosis, a verifiable, serious, potentially life-threatening ailment.
And what did he do?
He resolved, I'm going to live until I die, and I'm not going to get life and death confused. He refused to let his illness dictate his quality of life. He continued to practice law, serve his community, and enjoy his family well into his 70s.
The profound difference there is entirely in the attitude toward health. The man worrying about a potential unproven heart condition was on the fast track to defeat and misery.
And the lawyer, with a definite serious condition, maintained an optimistic, eager, and constructive attitude. And this is practical advice. We have to actively refuse to worry or complain about our health.
It's a deeply self-centered habit.
It is. It bores people, it doesn't earn your respect or loyalty, and most importantly, it just feeds Mr. Defeat, accelerating those potential EII symptoms. When someone asks how you are, a simple, "I feel great, thank you," is enough.
Okay, moving on to alibi number 2, age excusitis. This one is insidious because it can hold people back on both ends of the spectrum. You feel you're either too old to start something or too young to lead it.
Let's start with the "I'm already old" strain, which is captured by the story of Cecil. At 40, Cecil wanted to shift careers, start as a manufacturer's representative, but he felt it was just too late to start from scratch.
He saw 30 years of life behind him and only thought about the risk of failure at his age.
Right. But the cure here is this stunning reframing of productivity. The source material suggests you calculate a productive lifespan from around age 20 to age 70. That's a 50-year run.
So Cecil, at 40, he realized he still had a full 30 years remaining. Nearly 3/4 of his most productive years were still ahead of him.
He was cured when he switched his mindset from thinking, "I've wasted the first 20 productive years and I'm already old," to the attitude of, "I'm still young enough to have a tremendous, highly successful second act." It's the attitude toward age that makes it a blessing of experience or a barricade of fear.
And the reverse of that, the "I'm too young" strain, is equally destructive because it just prevents action. We see this with Jerry, the 23-year-old who was offered a sales manager job supervising 8 men, some of whom were up to 21 years older than him.
He worried intensely that his youth made him unqualified and would undermine his authority.
And Jerry's advice is perfect for anyone transitioning into leadership early.
It is. First, don't be age conscious. You're old enough when you prove you can do the work of a man, regardless of your number of birthdays.
And second, and this is the real leadership secret show, profound respect for the older salesman. Make them feel that they are working with a competent team captain.
What for a dictator?
That is crucial. He has to lead by competence and vision, not by arbitrary seniority or, youthful arrogance. The core message is that youth is a liability only if the youth thinks it is.
Right, or if they lack the ability and positive attitudes necessary to handle the responsibility. People who truly matter in the company, the executives, the decision makers, they will give you as much responsibility as you can capably handle. If you deliver, your youth is actually seen as an advantage. It represents energy and a long potential tenure with the company.
Okay, finally, we address alibi number 3. Luck excusitis. This is the belief system that argues success is arbitrary, external, and uncontrollable.
Or that personal misfortune is due entirely to uncontrollable, random external forces. This excuse is a complete rejection of the law of cause and effect. Nothing happens without a cause, period. There's no such thing as a true, uncaused accident.
Even traffic fatalities, the book says, result from human or mechanical failure.
Exactly. When people lean on luck, good or bad, they're denying the preparatory work or the personal shortcomings that preceded the outcome.
Let's talk about John and the $112,000 order. The weak salesman congratulates his successful colleague, John, by saying, "Well, John, you're lucky again. You just happen to be in the right place at the right time."
And that weak salesman is blinding himself to the reality, because accepting the truth would force him to change. John's success wasn't luck. It was carefully planned work. John had spent months working on that customer relationship, talking to multiple people across different departments.
Figuring out the custom needs of the project, getting engineers to make preliminary designs.
Yes. That $112,000 order was simply the inevitable harvest of methodical planning, persistence, and success-producing thinking.
So if success is planned, how does a big thinker minimize those external variables that might seem like bad luck, like a competitor failing or a sudden economic downturn? Don't those still play a role?
They absolutely play a role, but the big thinker prepares for contingencies that the average thinker just ignores. John, the successful salesman, he probably factored in competitor strength and delivery timelines during his initial planning phase.
So the cure for luck excusitis is to accept the law of cause and effect.
That's it. Take a second look at what appears to be good luck. It is always preparation. And take a second look at bad luck. It is always preceded by specific reasons or personal shortcomings that, if you analyze them constructively, can be salvaged for a valuable lesson. You turn the loss into intellectual capital.
All right, so we have spent a good amount of time tearing down the negative mental programming, this excusitis. Now we have to actively build the positive mental strength, which leads us to the acquired skill of confidence.
And that's key. It's acquired. No one is born with it. It's developed through specific proved treatments.
The first step in building confidence is recognizing the nature of its greatest enemy, fear.
Fear is a psychological infection, and it stems primarily from mismanaged negative imagination, and action is the only antidote.
Right. Indecision and postponement, they do nothing but fertilize fear, allowing it to magnify and grow into a paralyzing force that stops people from capitalizing on opportunity.
The famous Navy incident captures this principle perfectly. You have these non-swimming recruits, terrified of the water, imagining themselves drowning.
And their fear is instantly defeated the moment they are pushed off the board. The physical act of fighting to swim immediately supersedes the psychological fear of the unknown. Action cures fear.
And we have to apply this immediate action rule to all areas of life. Do you fear failing an exam? Convert that fear into study time.
Are you embarrassed over a personal appearance issue? Take prompt action. Practice better grooming or update your wardrobe.
Do you fear speaking to people? Cure the fear by realizing the other person is just another human being. The strategy is so simple. Isolate the fear, pin it down exactly, and then take action promptly. Hesitation only enlarges the fear into a mental monster.
And often, this paralyzing fear stems from a mismanaged memory. Our brain is essentially a memory bank that's supplying the raw material for new thoughts. We need to become really stringent managers of both the deposits and the withdrawals from this bank.
Think of your mind's bank teller as perfectly responsive but entirely amoral. If you walk up to the counter and ask to withdraw thoughts proving you are inferior, he will happily provide a list. Past failures, embarrassing moments, critical things people have said about you, moments of inadequacy.
But if you ask for reassurance,
He will provide the opposite. Moments of success, accomplishments, and confidence placed in you by others. Since it is your bank, you must enforce two very strict rules.
rule number 1, deposit only positive thoughts. Unsuccessful people, they take unpleasant situations and just dwell on them. This is what creates those mental monsters. The classic example is the honeymoon monster in a marriage.
What's not?
It's a trivial disappointment or a slight from years ago, but it's been recalled hundreds of times until it becomes this giant emotional obstacle years later, totally out of proportion to the original event.
Confident people, on the other hand, practice the art of don't give it another thought. They just cut off the negative memory from repetition. To ensure you deposit good thoughts, you have to use your solitary moments, driving, eating alone, waiting in line, to recall pleasant, positive experiences, little victories, and reasons you're grateful.
And a proven, excellent plan for this is to count your blessings and review your minor successes right before you go to sleep. You're actively conditioning your mind for positive expectation.
Which brings us to rule number 2. Withdraw only positive thoughts. And this requires active intervention. You have to refuse to recall unpleasant memories. The mind actually wants you to forget the unpleasant. It naturally suppresses trauma. If you cooperate with that instinct, those memories will shrivel away and lose their emotional charge.
So quitting the habit of drawing negatives from your memory bank is a central key to recovery from psychological problems and the sustainable building of confidence.
Exactly. If you allow any negative thought to be fertilized by repeated recall, it develops emotional strength, and it paves the way to chronic anxiety and psychological difficulties. Instead, when you find yourself thinking about the negative side of a memory, you have to immediately turn your mind off, switch channels, and redirect your focus to a positive plan or memory. This is active mental discipline.
This disciplined self-management leads us directly to the confidence action plan. And this isn't just theory. This is a set of physical actions based on a powerful psychological principle. To think confidently, you must actively, physically act confidently.
The first action is simple. It's accessible, yet it's fundamentally vital. Practice eye contact. Most people avoid it, or they give a fleeting glance. Looking the other person directly in the eye communicates something incredibly powerful without saying a word.
What does it say?
It says, I'm honest and above board, I believe in what I'm saying, and I respect myself enough to demand your full attention. It commands respect, and it makes you feel internally strong.
The second one is my favorite because it works on both a conscious and a subconscious level. Walk 25% faster.
Right. The average person walks at the average pace, which communicates low self-pride and a lack of purpose. The person who walks faster, they communicate to the world, I've got someplace important to go, something important to do, and I am focused.
But the internal effect is the true magic, isn't it?
It is. That slight sprint, that change in posture and cadence, it changes your internal body chemistry. It makes you breathe differently, stand taller, and look more alert. That physical action makes self-confidence grow internally, even if you're just walking around the block or to the coffee machine.
Next, develop the speak-up habit. We see this all the time in meetings. The conference clam, who has a good idea but fails to articulate it.
They take a heavy dose of confidence poison. They feel shame, regret, and more inadequate each time they stay silent.
Conversely, the more you speak up contributing constructive ideas and well-formed opinions, the more you strengthen yourself. Speaking up is a confidence-building vitamin. It proves you can contribute, and the recognition you receive makes it easier to speak up the next time.
So start small, but commit to making a relevant contribution in every meeting or social setting you attend.
And finally, smile big. Not a weak, half-developed smirk, but a massive, full wattage smile until your teeth show.
That large-size smile is a tool that is fully guaranteed to melt opposition, build loyalty and rapport with others, and internally, it forces you to feel happier and more on top of the world. It's impossible to feel miserable when you are genuinely expressing joy.
All right, so with our foundational confidence established, let's move to the Big Thinkers Toolkit. These are the external and environmental strategies that reinforce a positive attitude. And we start with vocabulary management. We established earlier that we think in pictures and images, and words are merely the raw materials that the mind converts into those mind pictures. Therefore, the vocabulary we use directly affects our psychological state and the reactions of others.
The classic example is the difference between the word problem and the word challenge. If you tell someone, we face a serious problem, the mind picture that's immediately generated is one of something difficult, heavy, unpleasant, and potentially insurmountable.
But if you say, we face an interesting challenge,
you create a mind picture of fun, of sport, something exciting to solve, a competition.
And this is more than just semantics. Your language has to promise victory and build castles, not dig graves with language like, oh, it's no use, we're totally whipped, or this is too complicated for me.
Right. By choosing words that imply action and possibility, you keep Mr. Triumph active. And we have to use positive language to encourage others too. Praise is a success tool that is massively underutilized.
It really is.
Compliment people sincerely on their appearance, their hard work, their achievements. Everyone you know, regardless of their position or success level, craves genuine recognition. It builds loyalty, and it creates a positive psychological environment all around you.
The next tool is stretching your vision, or the concept of adding value. This is the understanding that the world puts a price tag on us that is identical to the one we put on ourselves. And this applies to everything we touch, things, customers, and ourselves.
Let's look at adding value to things, exemplified by the successful rural realtor. He doesn't just sell the rundown farm as it is, based on its current features or condition.
What does he do instead?
He spends days studying the property, and he sells it for what it can be. A profitable riding stable, a lucrative tree farm, or a combination poultry and cash crop operation. People will pay significantly more for acreage, plus a creative, value-added idea than for just the acreage alone. The big thinker sees potential where the average thinker only sees current decay.
And this also applies so powerfully to adding value to customers. You must never value a customer based on the small purchase they make today.
Right. That cashier who only sees a single thin dime in the cafeteria is valuing the customer at that moment's transaction.
But the retail executive who decided to truly think big, he found that the average customer over the course of a year spent $362.
By making sure every employee saw that customer as a recurring $362 annual source of revenue, not just a $1.98 purchase, they fundamentally changed how service was delivered. Putting a big value on customers converts them into big, regular patrons.
And attaching little value sends them elsewhere. And perhaps most fundamentally, adding value to yourself. The story of the rate clerk is just pure inspiration. He earned a low income, drove a cheap car, lived in a cramped apartment. But he refused to look at himself as he was.
He visualized himself meticulously as the executive he was going to be.
And this is a splendid plan for adding value. Visualize yourself not as you currently are, defined by your current circumstances, but as the person you can and will be. The question is, how does that visualization translate into daily behavior?
Well, it translates into choices. The rate clerk who sees himself as a future executive, he doesn't waste time on pointless distractions. He takes night classes, he reads industry reports, he refines his communication skills, and he observes how executives dress and interact.
So looking at yourself as the person you will be makes you feel bigger and think bigger. It provides the necessary internal propulsion to achieve that future image.
Right. And next we have to address our environment, because the mind is what the mind is fed, just as the body reflects its diet. Your psychological environment is just as critical as your physical one.
We have to be fiercely cautious about associating with negative thinking people, whom the book calls negators. And they are everywhere, at the office, in your family, in social groups, and they delight in sabotaging the positive progress of others.
They argue that success isn't worth the price, or that opportunity is scarce, or that the system is rigged. They want to pull you down to second-class street because their misery craves company.
The young office worker who changed carpools is a cautionary tale. He was in a carpool with a colleague who found fault with absolutely everything: management, products, policy, customers. And this constant daily dose of negativity left the worker tense, discouraged, and mentally drained every single day before he even started his work.
So his solution was radical but necessary. He left the carpool and chose to associate with the flock that thinks right. You are judged by the company you keep, and you have to cling to people who think progressively, who build, and who challenge you constructively.
And this environmental management extends directly to our leisure time, what the book calls our psychological sunshine. Compare John's planned weekend spent with interesting, engaging friends, doing civic work, pursuing special projects, and reading restorative material, which leaves him refreshed, mentally tuned up, and eager for the week.
And contrast that with Milton's unplanned, bored, dreary weekend, often marked by cabin fever, boredom, and unnecessary psychological warfare within the family due to a lack of purpose. John's environment feeds his mind steak. Milton's feeds his mind candy and cheap beer, which impairs his thinking mechanism over time.
We have to ensure our environment, including what we read, what we watch, and who we socialize with, is actively feeding our minds positively.
And the final environmental rule, and this one has serious psychological ramifications, is the principle of going first class in everything you do. The argument is that, in the long run, going first class actually costs less than going second class.
How does that work?
Because second class is often full of low-quality goods and services that fail quickly, requiring constant replacement or repair. But the real payoff is entirely psychological.
So if you consciously choose quality over quantity, paying twice as much, and buying half as many items for quality goods, clothing, and services, your environment changes how you feel about yourself.
I guess your appearance, your well-maintained car, your quality repairs, they talk to you and to others. They say, here is an important person who respects himself and values his time. That self-respect built by quality is absolutely essential to thinking big.
Okay, we've established the powerful, positive mindset, and we've managed the external environment. Now let's focus on execution, getting the activation habit. This is the practical implementation of that I can do it attitude.
And the key is, you do not, under any circumstances, need to wait until conditions are perfect, because they never are.
The fundamental test of a successful person is their ability to meet and work out difficulties when they arise, not their ability to eliminate all problems beforehand.
And the major threat here is the passivationist trap, just waiting for perfect conditions before you act.
CD, the customs officer, is the poster child for this trap. He wanted to be an importer for 10 years. But every time he considered action, he postponed it.
He was always waiting for something. An economic recession, new trade restrictions, a new baby. Always waiting for that perfect, pristine moment when all the variables aligned.
And that perfect moment never arrived. His dream died due to inaction.
Contrast that with JM, the homebuyer. He and his wife needed a house, but he lacked the essential $1,200 down payment. He could have used that lack of capital as an excuse, waiting for years to save up.
But by resolving to take action now, he ignited his creative mind to secure the means.
Exactly. He immediately started securing a private loan from the builder, and he asked his boss for extra weekend work to raise the money for the slightly higher monthly payment.
The action itself led to the creative solution. When you make up your mind to do something about your ideas, the how quickly follows. You stop rationalizing and you start devising solutions.
And this action habit applies even when you lack inspiration, which is why we have to adopt the mechanical way to start. People who get things done, they don't wait for the spirit to move them, they understand they must move the spirit.
The writer who faces a blank page and can't wait for divine inspiration, what does he do?
He sits down and goes through the mechanical motions, doodling, organizing notes, or just putting anything down, until the mind gets on the right, inspired track. Action precedes inspiration.
And this technique is so vital for overcoming that natural dread of starting a difficult task. Door-to-door salesmen use this to defeat morning dread or fear of rejection.
They don't deliberate. They mechanically park the car, grab the case, walk to the door, ring the bell, and smile. They make the presentation without conscious thought about the fear. This mechanical start breaks the ice, and by the second or third call, the mind is sharp, engaged, and focused on the sale.
Now, this activation habit is fueled by a destination, goals. A goal is more than a passive dream. It's a dream being actively worked upon and planned for.
Right. Just as a corporation plans 5 to 10 years ahead, you have to form a detailed image now of the person you want to be 10 years from now. Without goals, you're just wandering aimlessly, floundering on the ruddy road to mediocrity.
And this is where the concept of automatic instrumentation comes in, which is the internal navigation system for big thinkers.
It is. When you surrender yourself completely to your major long-term goal, when it truly obsesses you, it provides an automatic pilot guiding every single small decision, much like a complex instrument panel guides a pilot through thick fog.
So that intense obsession simplifies the complexity of daily life.
It does. The goal helps you figure out what to say in a conference, what books to read, what specific steps to take for the next job promotion, even what clothes to buy. It gives you immediate feedback.
You evaluate every opportunity and choice with this single question. Will this help take me where I want to go in 10 years?
And if the answer is no, you back off.
And the ultimate goal is achieved step by step. You have to view the big project as being composed of smaller, individual, manageable tasks.
It's like writing a 250,000-word book, one paragraph or one page at a time. This methodical, disciplined approach ensures consistency of purpose, and it prevents the overwhelm that usually accompanies massive objectives.
Finally, we have to acknowledge that setbacks are inevitable. But our reaction is what determines our future trajectory. We need to understand defeat as a state of mind, not a permanent condition.
And the key here is salvaging the lesson. Mr. Success, when he's faced with a setback, he bounces up, investigates the failure objectively.
Like the CAA investigating a crash to prevent future ones.
Exactly. He learns the lesson, corrects the flaw, and moves upward. Mr. Mediocre, conversely, crawls away, afraid of taking another beating, and he uses the failure as proof that he was inadequate all along. He just resigns himself to failure.
This requires practicing constructive self-criticism, which is essential for professional growth. Think of Miss Stevens, who lost the Metropolitan Opera auditions of the air. Her teacher didn't coddle her. He delivered a harsh truth. My dear, have the courage to face your faults. Miss Stevens had to admit her voice range was genuinely lacking, and she needed to learn more roles to be competitive.
And that is infinitely more useful than blaming the judges or bad luck. Blaming others or external forces is destructive because it removes your agency.
Constructive self-criticism, on the other hand, helps you identify the precise fault and build personal strength and efficiency. You have to be like the professionals. Seek out your faults, diagnose them, and correct them.
And lastly, you have to blend persistence with experimentation. Stay absolutely committed to your ultimate goal. But if you're using the same approach and not getting results, like the struggling fiction writer who used the same story format 62 times and was rejected every single time, you have to change the approach. Don't just beat your head against a stone wall.
If you hit a snag, the most effective strategy is to back off, get mentally refreshed.
Engage in that psychological sunshine we talked about earlier, maybe gardening, a walk, or civic work.
And then start afresh with a new perspective. When you approach the problem again, often the solution comes almost before you know it, simply because you changed your approach.
This has been a tremendously detailed and practical deep dive, providing immediate, actionable steps to fundamentally resize your ambition and unlock that executive potential.
Our primary takeaways for you, the learner, are crystal clear.
First, fire Mr. Defeat and embrace the absolute belief that you can, because that conviction automatically generates the power, the skill, and the resources you need to execute.
Cure Excusitis by accepting the law of cause and effect, understanding that preparation, not luck, dictates your outcomes.
And build confidence by practicing physical action, like eye contact and walking faster, and meticulously managing your memory bank to deposit and withdraw only positive thoughts.
Use your vocabulary to build castles, not to dig graves. Always practice adding value to things, to customers, and most importantly to yourself by visualizing the executive you're going to be 10 years from now.
And finally, get the action habit now. Move the spirit before it moves you, and use your concrete long-range goals as your automatic instrumentation to guide every single choice.
The central theme that ties all this together remains so powerful and so simple. You are what you think you are. Others see in you what you first see in yourself.
The size of your success, both financially and professionally, is determined precisely by the size of your belief.
And that leads us to our final provocative thought, which is often cited as the cornerstone of effective leadership, the necessity of solitude.
The source material notes that nearly all successful leaders, from religious figures and political giants to top executives and pioneering innovators, they all take time out to regularly confer with themselves.
This is managed solitude, setting aside at least 30 minutes daily in uninterrupted, quiet thought. This isn't just staring out the window. This is how leaders do their super thinking.
It helps lift the fog of daily urgency. It helps you review major problems and decisions objectively, away from external pressure, and it enables you to tap your supreme thinking power.
So resolve to implement this practice. Use that quiet time to actively review your long-term goals against your current values, ensuring your daily decisions are fully aligned and 100% right for your future self. That solitude is the breeding ground for truly big ideas.
Now go forth and commit to thinking big. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.